This is a story about a marriage.
I am Lynn Brennan. I am married to Gary Brennan.
My name is Gary. I'm a brain injury survivor.
Last year, Lynn and Gary renewed their vows after 40 years of marriage. It was an intimate, beautiful ceremony. But even though there was cake and vows and family, it was not a normal anniversary or recommitment ceremony. Lynn and Gary were not the same people who got married 40 years ago.
The Gary that he is now, we've kind of termed Gary 2.0. He is who he is. He's still my husband. That's still Gary. But he's very different.
To understand what Lynn means, we need to go back a few years.
It was a Saturday morning. Gary had promised our son that he would come up to help him with a kitchen project. He got his keys and he kissed me goodbye. He got into the truck and I waved and he drove off. And that's the last that I saw of that Gary.
To get to his son's house that day, Gary had to drive off Cape, cross the Sagamore Bridge, and head north on Route 24. It was a trip he'd made thousands of times before, but this time he never arrived.
He was in West Bridgewater on Route 24 heading north. A driver who was traveling very fast rear-ended him in the high-speed lane. And the truck spun out across the two travel lanes, went full speed with the driver's side door into the highway sign that was there.
The paramedics came and rushed Gary to the hospital. He had multiple brain bleeds, a serious traumatic brain injury. When he woke up, his memory was gone.
He had told the emergency room crew when he came to that he was engaged to get married to a girl on the Cape in a couple of months. I was that girl.
Gary's head was stuck in 1974, the year Gary and Lynn got engaged. Eventually, Gary was released from the hospital and sent to rehab. There, his long-term memory started to come back. But his short-term memory was seriously damaged. Often, he couldn't remember things like what he had for breakfast or who had visited him that day. Gary wondered what life was going to be like from now on, especially with Lynn.
I knew Lynn loved me. I had no doubt about that. But could she like me? Would she like me?
Eventually, Gary was able to go home. Overnight, Lynn became a full-time caregiver. She had to help Gary relearn things like how to cross the street, how to towel off after a shower, or how to tie his shoes. On top of all of that, Lynn was getting to know a guy who was much more emotional. Gary felt everything more intensely: sadness, anger, pain, beauty.
If a David Crowder song came on, he would weep through the whole song because it was just so meaningful to him.
That's the song. My resurrection song. As you can tell, it's pretty emotional, and it's my hallelujah song. Yeah, I certainly grabbed hold of that.
The flip side is he's much more sensitive on the negative end. If he gets mad, he really feels very, very angry. He was never that way before. It was very lonely. You're missing the husband you've always had, but he's sitting right there with you. So it's a real strange feeling.
Lynn is always the one to get things done. No matter the situation, Lynn would make it work. But now there was no clear end in sight. No one knew if Gary would recover all the way, how his memory would evolve, and who he would be next week or next year. Lynn couldn't just turn the page and get on with things like they were before.
What role am I playing right now? Am I the caregiver? Am I the parent type? Am I a wife? Pushing through all this stuff, and I feel like I don't have the energy to put one foot in front of the other.
She knew something had to change. She swallowed her pride, went to a therapist, and was diagnosed with depression.
the irritability, repressing the stress. All of these things, these are symptoms of depression. And I finally said, yes, I'm going to admit it to myself that I'm dealing with depression, and it's okay to take a medicine to help with that.
By the time Lynn sought help, Gary was improving too. He needed less from Lynn. He could drive a car or make dinner. Lynn had managed to hold it together through the roughest part of his recovery, and now there was finally time for her to think about herself. Part of her dealing with her depression was understanding her new relationship with Gary.
In one sense, it's kind of learning about each other. It's almost like a dating process all over again. So the things that we do together often feel new.
We still are very much boyfriend and girlfriend. We've got a couple of pages of pictures.
I also keep a journal, which has been helpful to remind me of where I've been and where I've come, and also...
Gary and Lynn got married young, before they'd graduated college or had their first real job or apartment. They had their whole life and whole marriage ahead of them, and no idea what the future would hold or who they would become. What is this picture of here?
Gary and Lynn 1.0, way back in the day.
That's right.
I'm thinking we must have been, what, 19?
I had just asked Lynn to marry me because she's showing off her engagement ring.
Since the accident, both Gary and Lynn have changed, and so in some ways, their marriage is just like any other. People adapt and learn to love each other in different ways as the years go by. A year after Gary's accident, Lynn and Gary decided to renew their vows to mark this new phase of their relationship.
It was kind of like a second marriage, because we've got a new Gary, and because of all that I've been through, I would say I'm a new Lynn too.
I think of the vows that we took, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health. And here we are, 41 years later, and we've experienced a lot of those things.
Do you guys believe in soulmates?
I don't know. I don't know whether it's that you start that way or you become that. Either way, I think we're there.
For WCAI, I'm Nora Ritchie in Barnstable.